Welcome to Truth or Raps. As you could probably see with the other episode, the one before this one about Drake, uh, you can get pretty. Basically, like, just relax is part of my. It's my channel banner and channel logo. It's just the words "just relax" written down and or typed out, and when you're doing something as intense as even talking about a Drake song, which can be very intense, then it's easy to get really wound up. Let's see if we can do a rap analysis a little more sedately, or a little more relaxedly. So how about we do Ikon the Hologram? No, not Vinny Paz, not yet. This was released as part of the album called The Psychosocial Psychosocial Chemical Let's keep relaxing. Damn it. The psychosocial, chemical, biological, and electromagnetic manipulation of human consciousness, which is apparently also the name of a book. I have not read the book, nor have I looked much into it, but I think it might be sort of a truthery kind of book. So actually that might be a good one to look into. And the stuff on this album is certainly interesting. It's just about the most truthy, and I don't mean that in the shitty, what's his name? It's funny, I'm drawing a blank on the freaking guy's name. Not Jon Stewart, the other one. Stephen Colbert. I don't mean in the shitty Stephen Colbert sense, I mean the truther sense. It's a very truther album. They're talking about aliens and stuff one second, they're talking about spirituality and sort of like ancient religions the next. They're doing all sorts of stuff. Okay, so generally he talks about Islam, and there's actually a line in, I think it might be Retaliation, if not another song. I'll go to war for anyone who would die for Islam or something. Like, it's a, I hope I don't get this video taken off for even saying that. That's a lyric, or something like that is a lyric that Vinny Paz has in, I think, Retaliation or somewhere on Violent by Design, maybe. By the way, Violent by Design is one of the 10 albums I highlighted in my Kendrick Streak video. I highlighted more albums, but those were the 10 those were the 10 albums that I was highlighting specifically. And then I talked about other stuff too on my Rumble channel, Matt Shtick, SCHTICK, MATT space SCHTICK. So check that out if you like. It's a really cool it's a cool list of albums, but like, they are really cool albums there. But and I think the videos turned out pretty well as well. But I think it's like the last or the second to last Kendrick Streak one that has Violent by Design. I think it might be the last one. Part 6. Okay, I Who Have Nothing, Jedi Mind Tricks. Verse 1, Ikon. Prior to Violent by Design, he was still Ikon the Hologram, but then apparently there was somebody else with a rap name that, in the Philadelphia area no less, which is where he rapped, I think it was, that had the term Ikon prominently in it. So he ended up changing his name to Vinny Paz. And his style seemed to change too. It's actually kind of weird, like what's in a name. Like once he changed his name to the more aggressive, more sort of thuggy sounding Vinny Paz, rather than the sort of esoteric sounding Ikon, the hologram, especially spelled Ikon. That's like, it's strange. It sounds kind of occult, kind of whatever. And but as soon as he changed it to Vinny Paz, it sounded like his rap style took the form that you would expect someone named Vinny Paz more to have. Still with some of that spiritual stuff, but overall the aesthetic shifted to But not to say he's bad. I was listening to some of Violent by Design last night, and I was shocked at how good Vinny Paz's stuff was. Like metrically, the sounds that he uses themselves, not just the rhythm of the words, like the stuff he's talking about, the imagery that he uses, like even the puns that he makes that are sometimes hilariously like one might refer to them as dumb. I wouldn't say so, but they're like hilariously blunt and simple to the point of being funny, similar to the great self-titled stuff from Battle Cry by Army of the Pharaohs, which also featured Vinny Paz as one of the members of that sort of horrorcore type supergroup. When self-titled, he says, I think he says something like, I don't make the laws, son, that's a government issue, but I will break the laws with a gun that's a government issue. Like he rhymes, that's a gun that's a government issue with gun that's a government issue. I think it might technically be in the same line. No, it might be a couplet, but it's so funny. That'd be a pretty long line, but he's a wordy guy too, and it's so funny. And Vinny Paz says stuff like that as well. But he was a little more sort of solemn and more serious, it seemed. Not that he isn't serious in later stuff, but he seemed like more kind of pious to an extent, kind of like, less the aggressive guy, more like the enthusiastically spiritual and occult guy. But here we go. I think this was like the single from the album. I think they actually have a music video for it, which is kind of funny because like this album is so like it just comes off as like somebody made it in their basement. Like it's not that it's bad. I mean, it's fucking Jedi mind tricks. I think it's Stoop producing it. Like it's awesome stuff. But it sounds very, very underground, let's say. Like it sounds like low production values or sort of like just very makeshift production values. And even a lot of the verses sound like very loose. I wouldn't say like loose necessarily in a bad way. They're actually so loose that it's like interestingly loose. Like they're doing a whole new rapping style. And I don't say that like facetiously or to like make fun of them. Like it's bizarre. It's like Supreme Clientele in how weird it is, but it's like the other way. Whereas Supreme Clientele was really hard and like just rigid and sort of hit you with just consonant after consonant after consonant, like even without a seeming like rhyme or reason. This is sort of like really the opposite. It's just like the words are kind of falling out of their mouth and like falling all over the place and tumbling around. But let's relax and get into the verse. The first verse. I don't know how much of it I'm going to cover, but let's see. I who have nothing. Verse 1, Ikon. Intersections in real time. The umbro can circle in dimensions of the mind. Or the umbro. Not the embryo. The umbro. I don't know what the umbro is. Intersections, but there you go. Who knows? It might be like some really occult shit. Or it might be embryo, but somebody miswrote it. Intersections in real time. The umbro can circle in dimensions of the mind. Embryo would be interesting there, as if like within the dimensions of the mind, the spirit is being is gestating, is growing in the womb, and shall emerge into reality or something, or physical reality or whatever. Atomic bonds, the eternal time that defines, the vanity of my insanity and through time. I think that's in due time. So I think these lyrics might be just incorrect. I hate to say it, but let's go to Genius. I think Genius might have better lyrics. Top result, Jedi Mind Tricks for I Who Have Nothing. Produced by Stoop, okay. Yeah, this is a little better. Okay, there we go. Yeah, okay, so this is totally different. Now it's actually for, forget some of what I was like essentially disregard some of the words that I was reading out before. Okay, here we go. I who have nothing. Verse. Intersections in real time, the unbroken circle and dimensions of the mind, the tie that binds, the eternal tie that defines. I think that might be the eternal tide that defines, maybe, but maybe it's tie again. But anyway, still. Of. The vanity of my insanity in due time. Well, there you go. So he's intersections in real time. So he's sort of laying out like a scene for you, kind of, almost like the scene at the beginning of Genesis in the Bible. He's talking about time, intersections in real time. But intersections in real time, that sounds like sort of a confluence of events, like things happening, things intersecting in real time, like it's really happening now or something. The unbroken circle and dimensions of the mind. So this stuff is all happening now, but then maybe the unbroken circle is referring to some idea in particular, perhaps some idea about like time being a loop or something. And he does say intersections in real time in the first line, so then the unbroken circle, what is that? Maybe it's sort of like time is a flat circle, like the, meme line, but still a really cool line. It's unfortunate that people memed it. That might be a control mechanism where it was a really cool, evocative line from True Detective, and then it got turned into a laughing stock as a meme. You might say, Matt, it wasn't a laughing stock. People like that performance and that season of True Detective. And it's like, yeah, but the meme was just basically like putting him down. Like when it was used, what I saw, the attitude seemed to be like laughing at him for like saying something that sounded kind of offbeat, and like maybe implying that what he said was like meaningless or something. But I think that might have been a similar idea in True Detective as this is. The unbroken circle and dimensions of the mind. So it's like the unbroken circle of time, and then next to it are the dimensions of the mind. Like he's giving you that as a separate entity from what's going on here, and he's sort of categorizing it. It's sort of like a metaphysics of here's what happens, and then here are the dimensions of the mind, and the mind might filter and perceive what happens, or like have things going, spiritually correct language and stuff. I think, that sounds like a pejorative term, but it often is used as such, but I think it, spiritually correct might just mean like speaking about things in as truthful of a manner as possible, which sounds okay to me. That doesn't sound like something to make fun of either. Similar maybe to the True Detective quote, but okay. So he's like, however you want to accurately phrase it with how things actually go. Here's the unbroken circle, like intersections in real time, things happening in the now maybe, or just like everything in eternity. And then here are the dimensions of the mind. And the dimensions of the mind are like sort of maybe acting in some sense as a screen over what's really there in eternity and what's really going on. And then he goes on, the tie that binds, the eternal tie that defines, or maybe the eternal tide that defines. I think it might be, but in any case, he's starting to like now he's starting to get into territory where it does kind of sound like he's I'm building into something here, and I'm sort of looking to the next line after these two as sort of a foundation for this, like retrospectively when you get to it. But it sounds like he's sort of throwing out stuff that does sound kind of woo-woo and kind of meaningless, and kind of like saying stuff that just sounds cool and like it rhymes to sound all occult, because he says, the tie that binds, the eternal tie that defines. Especially it sounds like that, and kind of funny actually, if it is tie twice and not tie and tied. So he literally just, he's saying the tie that binds, and then he's like amping it up even further. He's sort of like making the concept of a tie really kind of purple and kind of almost exaggeratedly funny. The tie that binds, the eternal tie that defines. Like he's raising his like he's rising up and like announcing it into an echo chamber, like, you know, to make it sound not an echo chamber like politically or something, but like he's announcing it as if he's like coming out of a cave. The tie that binds, the eternal tie that defines, and like he's proclaiming something and making a proclamation, and then he follows it up with the vanity of my insanity in due time. And so it's sort of looking back at that stuff, and it's like he's talking about the vanity at Ecclesiastes, which he mentions in a line in Violent by Design. That rhymed, and that did too. Where he says something like, swear on the Bible and then lie to Ecclesiastes. He mentions Ecclesiastes, even though he mentions it saying lie to Ecclesiastes. But in any case, he might know that Ecclesiastes has the famous lines that are like, vanity, vanity, all is vanity, or something along those lines. And so, the vanity of his insanity. So he's sort of, at one point, like casting what he just said as like insanity, and then he's also, it's saying the vanity of the insanity. So it's not just insanity, but like it's sort of vain. I think the root of vain is actually, I think I heard somewhere like the root of vain, I think it might have been in a Bible footnote or something. It, at least in Ecclesiastes anyway, I think the Bible footnote, maybe in the ESV Bible that I have, I think it might have been, or perhaps in the New International Bible, New International Version. One of those two, I think it would have had this footnote if it was a footnote I looked at recently, where it said like vanity is like something like the wind, or something insubstantial, or something that like blows away. And so it's not vain maybe so much in the sense of like vain and like really proud of yourself and stuff and really haughty, but more vain in the sense of like doing something in vain, like that kind of sense of like it being a worthless attempt. It's all blowing away anyway. But not even just anyway, it's all blowing away before it even did what you wanted it to do there. And so he's saying here, the vanity, like the inconsequentiality, the worthlessness, the wasted and useless attempts of my insanity, like it's not even right what I'm saying, it's like insane, it's just like crazy talk. The wastedness of the stuff that's insane to begin with, and by the term insane meaning like not even true to begin with, in due time. So he's like dooming himself in due time to the vanity of his insanity. And it's like, that's just the beginning of this verse, and it's so funny. And then he follows up, in due time will shine. So in due time, the vanity of his insanity will shine. But shine sounds kind of positive. So it's like, you know, shine, become visible, or maybe shine and be kind of like, kind of impressive or kind of likable. Like the night, not only that, but the vanity of my insanity in due time will shine like the night sees under the moon. A beautiful, eerie scene he sets up here. That's how it's shining. The vanity of his insanity is shining like the night sees under the moon. That's beautiful stuff. The haunted corners of familiar rooms. So it will shine like the night sees under the moon, and then if you take this as another thing that it might shine like, based on the way the verse is arranged, then it will also shine like the haunted corners of familiar rooms, which is a scary, kind of creepy, not very pleasant shine. Or maybe it just will, the vanity of my insanity in due time will shine like the night sees under the moon, and that's just a beautiful image, and that's the end of the statement. And then another statement, unrelated specifically to the shine, but now talking about his life and the situation that he's in. I think this is the more likely interpretation to be supported here. The haunted corners of familiar rooms. This is where he's living, the haunted corners of familiar rooms. So he's like thinking about a lot of stuff. He's in haunted corners. They're familiar rooms. He's like staying in the same place. He's sedentary. He's not going out. He's thinking about all these spiritual ideas. Yet I'm consumed. So he's saying that as if it's in opposition to the haunted corners of familiar rooms, or perhaps he's in the haunted corners of familiar rooms. Yes, they are there, and then, but even further, he's consumed. Even further than that, he's consumed. Like, yet I'm consumed. It's as if he's saying, like, well, I'm thinking so much, yet I'm consumed about things. It's like, yeah, like, it sounds like a deepening statement to make, perhaps. And then he says, after that, we're vanishing into thin air. The realization that this shit is my cross to bear. So where did I think I could run away to see the people that decided to leave without asking me? And this gets into a little more like Linkin Parky, kind of like, I miss you, or without you, or I hate you, or whatever, like that kind of like just sort of seemingly cheaper or seemingly more schmaltzy, like kind of social dynamic stuff. But okay, so let's start with yet I'm consumed. Again. Yet I'm consumed, we're vanishing into thin air, the realization that this shit is my cross to bear, so where did I think I could run away to see the people that decided to leave without asking me? Without getting into the Linkin Parky, so where did I think I could run away to see the people that decided to leave without asking me, which actually sounds like two lines in the Linkin Park chorus. And I think this was prior to Linkin Park's big breakthrough anyway, if not prior to like anything that anyone would have been able to access by them, except like people in their town or whatever. Who knows? But who knows where Linkin Park really came from? Whatever. Anyway, not to diss Linkin Park. I like some of the earlier Linkin Park stuff. I haven't heard much of really anything, I think, beyond Meteora, except maybe a song or two, and perhaps sometimes didn't even realize it was them. But because they sort of went away from rappiness. They sort of went into what sounded more like a rock band. And it's like, I kind of liked Linkin Park for the rap and rock mixture. But anyway, so it sounds, without getting into the Linkin Parky stuff for a second, it sounds like he's talking about truthery stuff. And he said, so yet I'm consumed. Beyond the haunted corners of familiar rooms, or despite the haunted corners of familiar rooms, I'm consumed. Because yet being despite, or yet the haunted corners of familiar rooms, I'm consumed. We're vanishing into thin air. The realization that this shit is my cross to bear. That sounds like a Matt McKinley thing of like, getting into the truther stuff and like your cross being like being able to see through the bullshit in society and other people not really even acknowledging it when you show it to them directly. Like when you show them like video evidence for something and it's like not even disputed video evidence and they just go along with the narrative anyway, even though the evidence contradicts the narrative entirely and directly. But anyway, with the stuff that he's talking about with the spirituality and stuff and the stuff elsewhere on this album, and with the idea of the vanity of my insanity in due time will shine, that's sort of like the idea, like outside looking in on a truther or something. The haunted corners of familiar rooms of. In any case, it really does sound with the twices, the two lines here, yet I'm consumed or vanishing into thin air, the realization that this shit is my cross to bear, that he's saying like this shit, like understanding these things is my cross to bear, like perhaps practicing the spirituality or something is my cross to bear. And after the Linkin Parky line, yeah, so it sounds like, well, okay, so he's losing like the people in his life. They're probably leaving him behind because he's getting into all this weird shit. So after my cross to bear line, So where did I think I could run away to see the people that decided to leave without asking me? Where did I think I could run away from my current situation to see the people who left without asking me if they could leave? And that's sort of a presumptuous, like, framing, like, they left without asking me. It's like, do you control them? But at the same time, it's like he feels abandoned by these people, and he says, so where did I think I could run away, maybe run away from the haunted corners of familiar rooms, to see the people that decided to leave without asking me? Where did I think I could actually run away from this to see them again? Like, I've lost my community. Like, where did I come up with the idea that I could ever see them again? And so he follows that. But we decide to wait for happier tomorrows and find someone so they can be distractions from our sorrow. But my distractions, the books of paper that I scrawl in, I'm eloquent as summer breeze and leaves that have just fallen. So again, he sort of shifts over to, we decide, like, he's sort of talking about we as a people, like we as people generally. We as people decide to wait for happier tomorrows and find someone so they can be distractions from our sorrow. And that sounds like he's sort of veering into, like, I'm going to find someone and they're going to be a distraction for me. Like, I'm going to have maybe a romantic love interest or something. Like, I'm going to be back into the world. And for people who haven't fallen out of the world reputationally, it's a huge, like, gaping chasm. To get back into the world from there, it's a huge fucking struggle. Just ask me, you know, like, I'm not back into the world, you know, but who knows, maybe someday. But do I want to be back in the world? Because so many of the people in the world are hypnotized, and therefore it's sort of like a spiral kind of thing, not a necessarily bad spiral, although there are connotations, but a spiral of, like, these things working with each other and sort of almost like making each other inevitabilities. But anyway, it sounds like he's about to go off with, like, you know, we as people decide to wait for happier tomorrows. It sounds like he's lumping himself in with people who are kind of have cheery outlooks and they want to wait for happier tomorrows. Just the idea of waiting for happier tomorrows might manifest happier tomorrows, as I imagine someone like Vinny Paz, or here Ikon the Hologram, would be conversant in with the other stuff that he talks about, similar to a Drake maybe. But you get into the whole occultism behind, like, the music industry. Perhaps it's just a lot of spiritually minded people who know a lot of shit about the way things really work, sort of on a more metaphysical and a deeper level and a more operational level. Who knows, maybe, perhaps. But it will be that instead of finding someone so they can be distractions from his sorrow, he follows that up right away, and, like, the way he delivers the next two lines as well, which I've already read, but I'm going to read them again. The way he delivers them in the song, he goes from sort of like a plaintive kind of, like, you know, kind of sad and melancholy, but sort of like calm and solemn and even resigned sadness in his voice, to a more aggressive flow, full of more aggressive sounds. And, like, there are more lines, there are more there are more syllables in the line, or in the lines here, and he delivers them, like, more emphatically, and it sounds like sort of aggressive. So he talks about people, like, maybe finding each other and waiting for happier tomorrows, and again, I imagine Vinny Paz might get what I'm saying with the idea that if you're waiting for happier tomorrows, then you might get them. But he's perhaps not waiting for happier tomorrows or anything other than what he's been consumed with, perhaps in those haunted corners of the haunted corners of familiar rooms. And so he follows the thing about waiting for other people and finds someone so they can be distractions from our sorrow of, but my distractions, the books of paper that I scrawl in. I'm eloquent as summer breeze and leaves that have just fallen. He goes right back into the book. My distractions are writing things down. My distractions are thinking about things. My distractions are solitary efforts.